It just so happened that our species evolved during one of the harshest and darkest eras in the planet's history, the Ice Age. Perhaps that's why humanity is so concerned about global warming and protective of the polar ice caps, even though for much of the planet's history they weren't even there. Still, without fire, clothing, tools, and other implements, early humans wouldn't have survived most of Eurasia. The development and evolution of our genus Homo are inseparable from tool-making. At first, humans crafted simple stone tools, and later, those tools helped shape modern humans and humanity as a whole. One of the earliest of these tools was a stone flake with sharp edges made from flint or obsidian, materials that resemble glass. Later came bifaces, stones shaped on both sides, used as versatile tools for cutting and chopping. With the emergence of Homo sapiens, blade-making techniques became widespread. The invention of the stone blade enabled early humans to create a core toolkit for cutting, scraping, and sawing, one we still use today, albeit in metal form. Among all the tools out there, it's hard to overestimate the importance of what might seem like a humble invention, the knife. Primitive knives, like sharp-edged stone flakes, were probably not just the first tools but also, when attached to handles, the earliest weapons. Over time, the knife became humanity's most widely used tool. It eventually gave rise to daggers, and with the advent of metallurgy, to swords. In a way, it's the ancestor of all bladed weapons. Yet, the knife not only coexisted with these weapons but outlasted most of them. Despite its simplicity, a knife gave humans undeniable advantages. Having one in hand radically changes the impact of a strike. Keep in mind that even the fangs or claws of a large predator like a lion rarely exceed 10 centimeters. In other words, an average knife could inflict injuries on par with those caused by nature's most dangerous predators. Of course, predators have more than one fang or claw, and they also benefit from size, speed, and other factors. Still, in the wild, a person with a knife, or better yet, a spear, is far better equipped than someone empty-handed. But the true potential of the knife lies in its role as a tool. With it, you can cut and sharpen stakes, carve branches for shelter, skin animals, and prepare their hides. You can use it to build barriers for protection, make clothing, carve wooden utensils, slice reeds or grass, and cut leather straps. A knife, along with some skill and knowledge, enables humans to create all the essentials for survival. In a way, you could say that a person with a knife is a creator of material culture. No wonder Forbes once called the knife the most important invention in human history. That said, the concept of a knife is quite vague. There's no universally accepted classification, and what some cultures call knives might look rather unusual. Generally, a knife is defined by having a short blade and a single edge sharpening. A short blade likely refers to something under 50 centimeters in length. When it comes to knives as weapons, it's worth mentioning that most knives you see in stores today don't qualify as cold weapons. To meet the criteria, a knife needs to have a blade over 9 centimeters long, a spine thickness of at least 2.6 millimeters, a guard or stopper, a specific bevel angle, and several other features, all combined. That said, it doesn't mean that knives that don't meet the cold weapon criteria are suitable for self-defense. In fact, light, short-bladed knives often aren't great for self-defense. In many situations, a defensive fight with a modern knife might end the same way as one without it. Except that, after the fight, one or more attackers could end up dead, landing the defender in serious legal trouble. Unless, of course, the victim is stabbed with their own knife. Unfortunately, popular perceptions of knives are often far from reality. Many people think that the harder the steel and sharper the blade, the better the knife. But that's not quite true. Sure, harder steel, measured by the Rockwell scale, allows for a sharper edge that holds longer. Such steel is also slightly stronger under certain loads. However, hard steel doesn't handle impact well. It has low resistance to compressive stress. Hardness and strength are not the same. Softer, more ductile steels are often used for weapons to prevent breakage or chipping under stress. By the way, softer steels, typically those under 50 Rockwell hardness, are commonly used in knives designed for heavy use in freezing conditions. At low temperatures, steel becomes more brittle. Softer steel is easier to sharpen, but achieving a perfect edge is harder, and it doesn't hold the sharpness for long. It's worth noting that alloying, adding other elements to steel, can enhance certain characteristics. However, you can't improve every property simultaneously. When it comes to blade cross-sections, without diving into complex terminology, we can identify two extremes. First is the wedge shape. This design offers maximum sharpness and cutting ease. The second is a near rectangular shape with a short grind. While it's less effective at cutting, it's far stronger. Most knives are some compromise between these two extremes, but weapons tend to lean toward the sturdier second option. A similar trade-off applies to edge angles. The best cutting properties are found in knives with edge angles between 25 and 15 degrees. Razors and scalpels, for example, have angles between 15 and 8 degrees. However, such sharpness is only practical for soft materials. The smaller the angle, the faster the blade dulls, and the greater the risk of damage when cutting hard materials. For combat knives, the angle is typically 30 degrees or more. So, the knife with the best cutting properties would have a blade made of premium-grade hard steel, a wedge-like cross-section, and an edge angle of around 15 degrees. But such a knife is mainly suited for delicate tasks, like slicing fillets on a cutting board. Combat knives, on the other hand, sacrifice razor sharpness and cutting ease for durability and resistance to impact. Choosing the steel grade, blade geometry, and edge angle is always a balance between sharpness, cutting performance, and durability. And we can't ignore the persistent myth about blood grooves that still thrives on the internet. In short, the groove on a blade is called a fuller. Its purpose is to reduce the knife's weight and make it easier to pull out from hard materials. Today, there are countless knife designs, just as there were in the Middle Ages. I could go into a long list of examples here, but I think simplifying this vast topic is more useful than complicating it. First, it's worth noting that the likelihood of needing to defend yourself with a weapon in the Middle Ages was far greater than it is today, and if you did, it was unlikely that your opponent would be unarmed or wearing something as flimsy as a t-shirt and shorts. That's why modern knives, like skinners, push daggers, or folding models, would hardly impress someone from that era. Essentially, there are two ways to make short-bladed weapons suitable for combat. The first is to increase the blade's width and thickness while shifting the center of gravity from the handle toward the tip. This creates a compact weapon with a wide, thick blade capable of delivering decent chopping and cutting damage, and in some cases a thrust might even pierce chainmail. A great example is the sax fighting knife, known for its significant blade thickness, usually 5 to 8 millimeters, and its relatively short length, typically under 40 centimeters. This tool was incredibly sturdy and durable. In a pinch, it could probably even parry a sword strike. The concept of a powerful chopping thrusting knife appeared in various cultures. Later examples include German cordes and Messer knives, as well as even later cutlasses. Since making a large knife with effective chopping and cutting properties was significantly cheaper and easier than producing other bladed weapons, they were often used by the less wealthy parts of the population. Weapons like the cordes or the scythe-based blades popular in Eastern Europe were often crafted by peasants and artisans. These tools often doubled as farming implements. Essentially, this category also includes the machete, used for cutting cane, and the early shashkas, which were, according to some theories, originally used for trimming grapevines. So, when farmers or craftsmen turned a knife into a weapon, it was typically a large and hefty one. However, there was another approach. To explain the second approach, we need to step away from rigid classifications. This path led to the creation of lighter, short-bladed weapons, with the center of gravity shifted closer to or even into the hilt, featuring double-edged blades optimized for thrusting. Yes, we're talking about daggers. On one hand, they are a distinct category of melee weapons, but on the other, they've been seen as variations of knives since the days of ancient stone tools. Daggers were most often a secondary weapon, practical to carry at all times. While an opponent wielding a longer weapon had certain advantages, a dagger allowed for quick, precise action even in tight spaces. A thrust might lack the blunt stopping power or slashing capability of a larger weapon, but it could penetrate an enemy's defenses effectively. Moreover, while stab wounds had a small surface area, they could cause serious internal damage, often leading to a swift and fatal outcome. A quintessential example of a medieval dagger is the quillon, resembling a smaller version of a longsword. Starting in the 14th century, the Bollock dagger became quite popular. If its shape looks familiar to you, no, it's not a Freudian slip. The name of this dagger, in fact, has something to do with what you might be thinking. It was often worn at the front of the belt, near the groin area. Another fascinating example is the narrow curved knife, known in Russia as the zasapozhnik. This blade was hidden inside a boot and considered a weapon of last resort. By the late Middle Ages and early modern period, daggers began to feature complex hilts. A great example is the Spanish daga, which wasn't just effective for stabbing but also for parrying. However, during this period, the rapier started becoming the primary weapon for those authorized to carry arms. By the 18th century, daggers in Europe had largely fallen out of favor. In summary, while there's a vast variety of knives and daggers, this video is just a quick introduction to the topic. But if we had to simplify, in the past, to serve as a weapon, a knife either had to have a thick, wide blade capable of powerful slashing and cutting, or it had to function as a dagger,